Yeah, so welcome everybody, and thank you for attending, and particularly those members of the public who are here. Following the death of the Duke of Edinburgh, we're in a period of public mourning, period of official mourning. So we're therefore going to start this meeting with 1 minute's silence, by observing 1 minute's silence as we pay tribute to the Duke of Edinburgh's long record of service. And we might particularly want to recognise his work in setting up the Duke of Edinburgh Award, in which a total of 8 million young people have participated worldwide. So we'll start with a 1 minute silence.
That's a minute, Councillor.
Thank you. Right. So we start with the open session on planning, and we have four members of the public present. So I'm going to ask you to speak in the following order. So first of all, Matthew Wedderburn, and then Sharon and Nathan Blake, and then Charlie Pogson. So, you have 3 minutes to speak. So Matthew, can you hear me?
I can indeed.
Indeed. Would you like to start? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. A little over 2 years ago, my neighbours Caroline and Nicholas Anstey replaced wooden windows and a door in their Grade 2 listed house with plastic and composite ones. According to the Listed Buildings Department, this is not acceptable and a criminal offence. I informed the Kirklees Council immediately. Subsequently, Kirklees have enforced that the windows and doors should be removed and reinstated with sympathetic wood door and wooden sash windows. Nicholas Anstey has appealed the enforcement with Planning Inspectorate. His defence for replacing the original windows and door with plastic substitutes was due to his acute liver failure. The Parish Council champions local historic and environmental issues and has a welfare assessment agenda. Therefore, I would like to think that they would agree that if the plastic windows and door are allowed in the 300-year-old historical Grade 2 listed building, it sets a precedent for others to do the same within the Home Valley. I hope the Parish Council will support both myself and Kirklees in opposing this appeal by informing the Planning Inspectorate that this is unacceptable and not within keeping of a historical listed building. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Matthew. Right, so I propose suspension of standing orders if any councillors wish to ask Matthew any questions. Is there anybody in questions to Matthew? Paul?
I don't think it's a case of asking any questions. If this is one incident on something that is historical and Kirklees Council are dead against it, I think it should be up to this council to support Kirklees' comments and support this gentleman in getting this property put right. There's too many people that go about doing things and then using another excuse. This is an excuse. I don't think the windows would be any different or any worse if they were done in timber and done like they should be.
Thank you. Thanks, Councillor Dixon. Right, any more comments or questions? We are aware that the deadline for making a submission to the Planning Inspectorate is the 4th of 4th of May, which is before our next planning meeting. So proposing a way ahead to carry this matter forward was that we set up a small group to work with the Deputy Clerk, with Rich, to make a very short representation to the Planning Inspectorate, because we have a policy on the Planning Committee of supporting the decisions of Kirklees specialist officers in terms of heritage buildings. So I'm proposing that the members of that small group are Darryl Gould, who's the one of the parish councillors for Wooldale, me, and work with Rich to draft a very short submission for the Planning Inspectorate. So our members, thank you, thanks Rachel. Seconded by Rachel. The members, are you happy to that as a way of proceeding? Good, thank you. Right, thank you, Matthew.
Thank you very much.
That's fine. Right, you're very well. You're very well. Right, goodbye.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
You're welcome to stay, but you don't have to. Right, thank you. We're moving on now to one of our planning applications, which is number 31 in our numbering scheme. So this is the land adjacent to 71 Woodhead Road, and we've got Sharon and Nathan Blake here, who want to speak about this application. Are both of you speaking, or just one of you? I think
probably let Sharon. She's far more eloquent than I am, so I'll let Sharon take the mic.
Fair enough. Over to you, Sharon. Thank you.
Apologies for our late submission. We would have provided it much earlier if we could have done. If any of you are familiar with the site, you will know that it's been in quite an appalling state for a number of years. Our property is across the road, 18 Woodhead Road, but we also own the small detached, which is 69A, which has been built but not completed, simply because of the poor state of the remaining site. We were advised that we were wasting our time going any further until it was sorted out. The state of the site is solely down to the applicant of this application, and we do have a long-standing dispute with him, legal dispute with him, to try and get this site sorted out. We've made very proactive efforts to come to some agreement, but they've basically been met with a brick wall. His previous application, submitted in 2018, 90143, was actually supported by the parish council. I've no doubt that you accepted it in good faith as a true and fair reflection of what's on site, but there were many inaccuracies and misleading information and false claims in that application. All were challenged by ourselves and others, and many revisions and resubmissions later, 9 months after it was submitted, it was refused planning permission. You now have in front of you a very similar application, which on the face of it does seem to be an almost perfect application. One that I would argue ticks the right boxes. They seem to know what people want to see and hear. However, if you having such knowledge of the site, it's much easier for us to give it the easier scrutiny than those that don't. And the proper scrutiny shows that it's nothing of the sort. The application then is no different, and because of these inaccuracies, which some of which we've detailed in our attachment that we sent to you, we would ask you not to give it support and not to allow him to hoodwink you all again. Specifically in relation to the new application, it claimed to us that the previous application, the omissions and errors were due to an incompetent architect. He does now have a new architect, but this architect seems to be making the same false claims and providing the same inaccurate drawings. Specifically, he says this time that highways are accepting the layout that's presented. If you look at the actual highways drawing where you see the vehicle displays and the parking, by plot 3, which as you look at the site on the left, the vehicle is actually drawn, suspended some 2 metres above ground level beyond the retaining wall, a retaining wall that was built without planning permission and is some 3 metres high and spans the entire site. The ground levels then were increased by some 2 metres under the line of protected trees. On the other side, the 2 vehicles are shown in an area which was part of an earlier application in 2005 and provided a turning area for this same application. That property has now been built at 69B. The picture, I think, is in his application. It's being marketed for sale currently, but I would suggest that it is in breach of its planning. If it's sold, any subsequent purchaser would not be able to meet this planning because the area of land reserved to turn vehicles and parked vehicles is being kept by the applicant and is being used again for this application. The access at that application in 2005, I think I've put in within our submission, was acknowledged by William Simcock at the time as having inadequate access, inadequate sight lines and insufficient off-road parking. So to allow the area to be made even smaller, I cannot see any justifiable grounds for highways. So surely that area of land shouldn't be available for this application. As such, then on both sides, they haven't shown an area to turn vehicles round. I know I'm conscious of time, so I'll quickly go on to protected trees. The site has a line of protected trees. No protection whatsoever has been given to these trees. There was a condition of planning that they had to have fencing round on the last application, and it never was erected. They've used mechanical diggers to dig beneath them. They've dug through the root protection areas. They have compacted building waste and increased ground levels by some 2 metres. And they have now submitted the same arboricultural method statement that they provided for the previous application. If you will look back in that application, the comments from Joe Robertson of Kirklees Trees, I can probably quote him. It says, the arboricultural method statement did not reflect the situation on site. If the trees man at Kirklees Council was of that opinion, then I'm not so sure how it can be accepted for this to support an application at the site. There are various issues in relation to this site, which is why it's in the state it's in. If it was considered properly as one large site by a more professional developer, I'm sure it would have been developed, and we would have a lovely development there years ago. The problem here is we're putting applications in piecemeal, which is why we're able to appear to use the same land twice. We're doing considerable works without planning permission and then presenting them as existing. And in relation to the protected trees, in this application, it will tell you how there are no dig, there will put things around trees, continually telling you the right things, but they're not actually doing them on site.
Sharon, I think you've possibly exceeded your
I know.
Okay.
I'm really sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So thank you so much for that, and thank you too for the written submission that you made, which all members have had. So it's all been circulated. So anything you didn't manage to say, we have had in your written submission. Okay. That's fine. Do any members of the committee wish to ask a question? Pat, Councillor Colling.
Yeah, I understand a lot of your frustrations, and a lot of the things that he's done are broken conditions and all the rest. What I'm not clear about is what precisely you're objecting to, because we can't, as a planning committee, turn something down because we don't believe somebody is honest.
No, I'm kind of For a start off, I don't think the arboricultural method statement should be accepted when the council zone tree officer says that it doesn't represent what's on site.
Yeah.
Secondly, the highways plan that's been submitted is quite clearly a misrepresentation again of what's on site, and that happened again with the previous application, and it doesn't actually show what it purports to show. What I was going to go on to say, we own 69A. It says within the design statement that that has its own access from Woodhead Road. Now that is a 12-foot strip of land that goes over our property. These rights are governed by deeds and covenants, so they're not something that can be abandoned. This
isn't though something that planning deals with. This is,
well, the applicant
a bit technical here.
Yes, I understand, but
they're very restricted in.
Yes, I know. But what I'm going to go on to tell you is this same right of way is relied upon by the applicant to get to the plot of land that he also owns at the back of the development alongside the river. That will subsequently be landlocked if the application goes ahead, and that's why we believe that the rights of way should be considered a material planning consideration and should be addressed properly as part of this entire site. We still don't know what he intends to do and why he wants to keep this site.
Thank you
very much. I think I'm clearer now, Sharon. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much, Sharon. Right, you're going to move on to another planning application, which is our number 7, which is the redevelopment of Hinchcliffe Mill and area. So I know that Charlie Pogson wishes to speak. Noel Scanlon, do you wish to speak as well? Noel?
You're mute.
No, sorry, I'm here with an interest in a couple of other applications, so I'm just purely an observer this evening. Thank you for the invite anyway.
Fine, thanks very much. Right, okay, so Mr. Pogson, would you like to have your 3 minutes? Thank you.
Sure, yeah, so I represent several local residents in Hinchcliffe Mill who are objecting to the planning application, and we're seeking support from the Parish Council. Most local residents generally agree that the mill building itself would benefit from redevelopment, and we welcome this. It's a clear contributor to the conservation area, and its present state of repair is acting as a drag on the character and the setting of the conservation area that it sits in at the moment. However, there's no possibility that the application in its current form could lawfully and in policy terms be granted. And it falls short in a number of several key areas, and it needs significant scaling back and redesign. There's no mention or reference to the Home Valley Neighbourhood Development Plan in the application itself, and although obviously at the moment it's unadopted and not forming part of statutory development plan, its advanced nature really means that it has a increasingly significant material consideration, which has been completely ignored. In addition to that point, the site itself is recognised as being allocated in the Kirklees local plan under allocation reference HS 190, and that identifies a capacity of 19 dwellings for the whole site, including the mill building, not just the area outside of it. And on this basis, the application is an over-intensification of at least 5 units. In addition to that, the actual HS 190 allocation also comes with several caveats and a warning from highways and transport. There are a number of reports that should have been submitted with any application with regards to this site, including a flood risk assessment, contamination report, heritage impact assessment, health impact assessment, ecological assessment, transport assessment, amongst others. 3 of the reports that haven't been submitted or in their alternative are submitted in dilute fashion, and thereby they don't address the requirements which are clearly stated within the plan. As I say, the actual mill building itself is welcomed and supported, but there's no possibility of the remainder of the scheme that it should be granted in its current form, and it'd be better if it was withdrawn and the applicant sought further advice and engaged with the local community about what a more appropriate scheme would look like, and consider resubmitting a better, more sensitive and appropriate scheme for the conservation area that it sits in. So at this point, local residents are seeking support from the parish council, with the expectation of an objection being submitted by the council.
Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Thank you, Mr. Fox. And you also sent in a written submission, didn't you? We've had a written statement from you as well. So thank you. Do any of the members of the committee wish to ask any questions? No. Thank you. Right. So what I'm proposing to do now is to continue with the agenda as it's set on our agenda and on our papers. But I am suggesting that we bring forward these two planning applications. That's number 7 and number 31 to the beginning of the planning list, so that members of the public can either stay or not as you wish. So we'll bring number 7. We'll do it in order. So number 7 and then number 31. Right. So back to the agenda. So item 1, this meeting is being recorded and will subsequently be available to view on the via the Parish Council website. Does anybody else here wish to record? Any members of the public wish to do any additional recording? No. Right. Thank you. So move on to apologies for absence. I think we've had apologies from Councillor Michael Pogson and Councillor Darrell Gould. That's, yep, right.
Yeah, Councillor Gould is having to work late and Councillor Pogson's in another meeting.
Thank you. So, right, move on to members and officers' personal and disclosable pecuniary interests in items on the agenda. Has anybody anything?
I'm not sure. I haven't gone through the list. I looked at it the other day and I didn't see anything, but if I do, I will let you know.
Fine, thank you. Thanks, thank you, Paul Dixon. Right.
Councillor, I've got a personal interest in the Hinchliffe Mill site, right. Really.
Thank you.
It is, you know, I can see it from my back garden.
Yes,
so.
you definitely have an interest then, don't you? Right. Thank you.
We haven't got an NIMBY in our camp, have we?
I wouldn't describe
that. Sorry, Richard. I didn't mean that. I didn't mean that to be. I
wouldn't describe our clerk in that way. Right. So, any written requests for new DPI dispensations? Rich, no. Thank you. No. And item 5. Should any items on the agenda be discussed in private session? No. No, I don't think so. Right, moving on to the minutes of the previous meeting. Can we confirm that the minutes which you've had for some time of the Planning Committee held on the 8th of March, numbered 152 to 168, can we confirm those minutes, please? Somebody? Thank you. So, yeah. Thanks. The vote. Okay, thank you. Right, completed Kirklees planning list, which again we've had updated with the views of the committee following our last meeting. So noted. Thank you. Noted. Thank you. Right. So let's move on to what's going to be the heart of this meeting, the list of new planning applications, which I don't need to tell any of the committee members is a very long list this time, for obvious reasons, because of the intervention of the Easter break. So I'm going to bring forward planning in our numbering number 7. which is the Hinchcliffe Mill development. It's fair to say we have had a lot of representation about this, and I think there were 54 neighbourhood representations on the Kirklees planning side, so it's obviously caused a great deal of upset interest or whatever.
Councillor Hogley's got a hand up.
Yes,
Councillor.
thank you.
Yeah, I was just going to get the ball rolling. Right, what I was going to say is I think we should refuse or object to this application, not because I don't support the principle of redevelopment of the site, and I think it's important that a brownfield site like this one is sensitively redeveloped, and as was brought to our attention by a member of the public, it is a site that was allocated for potential 19 properties. So I think the first reason to object to it is over intensification, and I think one bit that really irks me is the bit at the back, which is basically on an element of green fields rather than within the auspices of the brownfield area. So the mill building's fine, and the bits sort of close to the river, but where it sort of starts going up into the fields, I think that's a clear over intensification. The second reason to object is there's clearly concerns around highways, and the original applications thought about seeking alternative parking for some of the residents of Downhead and Spring Lane. I think those things really need to be looked at, because it is just chock-a-block. You just won't get the vehicles getting through there. There'll just be serious concerns, as have been raised in many of the representations we've had. So I just think there needs to be something done about some communal parking, which it sounds as if that was sort of promised in the past, but isn't being delivered in this scheme. And the third reason is about heritage concerns with design, and I think that's mostly around the new buildings rather than the conversion of the mill. And it's interesting to say both the Conservation Officer from Kirklees gives a very robust and negative critique of what's proposed, and similarly English Heritage as well object to it. So I think on the grounds of over-intensification, highways and the heritage designs not being suitable, then I think we should object to it on that basis, but say that we do support the principle of redeveloping the brownfield site, but in a more sensitive way. And I would agree with a member of the public that some more proactive engagement should be done with the local community to come to a reasonable solution, because there is no denying Water Street, for example, is very narrow. It's not ideally you wouldn't have any more vehicles going around that area, but we can't get away from the fact it used to be a mill, used to have people travelling in to go to work, and obviously it's then been vacant for a long period of time, so people get used to there being less traffic. So I think there's a middle ground, I think, of redeveloping it, but in a much more sensitive way.
Thank you. Thanks, Councillor Hogley. Right. Any other councillors wish to express an opinion? Councillor Dixon, Senior.
The only comment I've got to make is one of my colleagues down at the cattle market did refer to it the other week when we were discussing his rights to get to the fields further on, and that it seems to be strange that what was a brownfield site is now turning into a greenfield site. And I think Rachel's right, and the gentleman speaking is right. We'd like to see the mill turn into something nice and made to look nice, and the area around there. But to have another 17 properties, I think somebody's just joking here. I think it's just a joke to have all that extra property. An odd one or two maybe to have just blended in and made it seem right would have seemed okay, but it's a great, well, it's just ridiculous.
Thank you. Thanks, Councillor Dixon. Anybody else wish to comment? I mean, I completely agree with what Rachel has said, but I think I'll perhaps add a couple more things to the objection. So I think there's some question about the flood risk, and there's also a question about ecological damage as well. So I think it's a fairly comprehensive rejection of this planning application. So we are objecting. So just to make clear, we know what we're doing. We are objecting to this application on a series of grounds, which I assume Rich has recorded, but also expressed that we are not unsympathetic to the development of the mill. So really, it's go in every rethink time. So can I just have a show of hands? So we are happy to object, right? That's, yeah, okay. That's unanimous. Thank you. Right. So, Mr. Pogson, you're welcome to stay, or you're welcome. You can go, whatever you wish. So, right. So let's move on to quickly to number 31 in our list, which is the land adjacent to 71 at Woodhead Road. Right. Okay, any, yes, Councillor Colling, Pat.
There are clearly problems with this whole application. I don't think many of them, strictly speaking, are planning problems. But I think our simplest and strongest grounds to send it back for a total reappraisal or just object are the trees. If they're already damaged and they've already dug under the roots and clearly not built the fence they say they're going to, then we can object on those grounds, if on no others. I don't know how many of the other things are, strictly speaking, planning things. The misleading representation of the access is another thing we can probably object to. Mr. Paul Dixon probably knows more about this than I do, or you may, Mary. The things we can object to as planners, as opposed to just representative councillors.
Do you have any comments, Councillor Dixon?
The comment I would make, we've talked about this right of way and one thing and another. People can put applications in and get planning permission on other people's property. They can get planning permission on rights of way, but legally they cannot build on them. And it's a private matter, and it isn't something that this council can look into. We've got to look into the rights and wrongs as to whether the appropriate development's appropriate. In this case,
well, the trees,
there's all sorts of problems. I have never been a big tree lover. Trees have cost me a lot of money in the past, and other people that I've been working for. I have bad feelings about some, but others, there is reason for them being there. And these people have spoke that there is trees and they're there for a reason. I don't know who the applicant is. I don't know who's selling the properties for him. I hope to God it isn't my son and I'm going to get a rollicking because I didn't know anything about it. But as far as I can see, there's not a lot we can do other than reiterate the question of whether the trees constitute the reason for not developing it. The right of way, as I've said, is a private matter, and that's between the parties. If there is a right of way and it's written and it's documented on deeds, well then it has to remain as one. And if it is the right of way to a building block behind for a reason, you don't landlock your own property.
Mary, I wonder if we can object on the grounds of the trees, but suggest that there may have been, to use a very tactful word, misunderstandings about the nature of this spare ground between and how it may have appeared twice on different plans as a different thing, that we are a little puzzled or something of that sort.
Thanks, Councillor Collins. Councillor Hockley was going to come in, I think.
Yeah, the other thing I was just going to raise is obviously it was raised by the members of the public who brought it up, the highways in terms of the access and egress of vehicles. And looking again at the plans, it seems slightly curious that you almost have an arch. It looks as if it's kind of an arch under the house that you use to turn around. Well, unless it's very high, that's very restrictive on whether, say, a van could turn around, for example. So I'm not sure if that's I'm not aware of any other houses that work on that basis, to be honest. So I think we can express concerns about the turning provision, because I'm just thinking, like, if a delivery van drives in, it can't turn around because it won't be able to reverse into just a single story height. It's not like going into a garage. And I think given they're 3-bedroom houses, they ought to have parking for 2 cars, and it's not absolutely clear how, if there's another car parked on the drive, the other one could safely exit the site. So I think there's a legitimate highways grounds alongside the trees.
Good.
Right. So is this the situation where we, because it is the land, you know, it is a mess, isn't it? I mean, something needs to be done with it. Is this a situation where we state that we're not opposed to principle of development on there, but we're not able, but we wish to object to this particular application because it raises a number of issues for which answers are required, including the trees and the parking and the access.
Yeah.
Is that, are you happy? Yeah, can I just have a show of hands for that then? Is that, yeah, okay, that's unanimous. Right, thank you. Okay, thank you. So I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. You're not. Yeah. You've had your chance to speak. So maybe just saying thank you, but I don't know. Anyway, bye bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Right. So let's go back to number 1. Which is Home First Central.
Yeah, this will be me.
Rachel,
sorry, let me just consult my notes of the longest list I've ever known in planning.
I know.
They've had nothing else to do while they've been in lockdown. They've been saving the planning applications.
Well, no, I think it's people have been looking at their houses, wanting to expand them because
Well,
they're spending so much time on them.
Can't they?
Well,
no. Depends if you've retained
your job
or not. Anyway, I think it seems okay. It's a small utility, an extra kitchen, sitting room. The only thing I just wondered about, if we can just query, I support it, but there was reference to a bin store in the original design, sorry, what's existing, and then there's no reference of where the bins go in the new design.
Okay. Right. Yes, I had a look at it. I thought it was basically fine. So we're saying we support that, but we're just raising a query about the bin store. Yeah. Okay. Show of hands. Are we? Right. Thank you. Right. And moving on to number 2, single-story front garage extension in Alligill Park in Upper Song. Highways. Kirklees Highways made no objections to this. Rachel, did you have a chance to look at it?
Yeah, I had a look. It looks okay to me. Just to make sure the I've written down driveway should have runoff. I'm just wondering why I've written that. I think it's about the fact the surface of the drive should be appropriate, but I know Kirklees are
at the enforcing permeable driveways at the moment. Okay, so are we supporting that? Yep. Thank you. Right. Number 3 is Homley Central. So Pat.
Sorry, I've lost my place. Oh yes, I was. I just thought supported. It seemed to me completely unremarkable in every way.
Yep, I thought so too. Yep. Okay, support. Yep. We can't spend long on many of these if they're uncontentious, like as that one is. Right, and the next one's Councillor Paul Dixon, me. So
have you any problem with it, Mary? I haven't.
I don't have any problem with it. No, I think it's fine. It's a very small extension, so I think there's no problem. Yeah. Okay. Support. Thank you. Right. Now the next one is another Thong one, which Daryl is supposed to be looking at. So I did have a look. I was a bit confused about the render. I couldn't find out where this render was going. I don't know. Oh, Councillor Hogley, Rachel, have you?
Sorry, I was just going to say, yeah, I had the same thought. The principle of rear extension was fine, but there didn't seem to be any detail about what the render was, and I was a bit concerned if it was going to be rendered, that didn't look in keeping with the style of all the properties there. So I think we should just raise the concern.
Should we just support? Shall we go for support?
Support the principle, but raise concerns about the
raise the question about the render, that it's used appropriately. Yeah. Okay. Those in favour? Yeah. Right. We're going to get tired of this by the time we've done it 41 times. Right. The next one is a Fulston one. So did you have a chance to look, Tom, at this one? It's change of land use from field to garden.
I've had a look at it. It's a small extension at the back over the space where the patio would have been. It's not much really. I think it's fine.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I don't know.
Mary, we're on the same application, the erection of two-storey rear extension.
We're on number 6.
Yeah, two-storey rear extension.
Yes. Yeah. There was something odd in some of the paperwork about a change of land use, but anyway, yeah, it was a two-storey rear extension. I think it's fine. Yeah. Okay. Support that one. Yeah. Thank you. Right. The next one, thankfully, we've already dealt with, number 7. Right. Number 8 is Upper Home Valley one on Shore Lane. Any comments from Councillor Hogley, Rachel?
Yeah, I had a quick look. It's a very minor roof raise, clearly to make more space, presumably make a usable space in an upstairs attic. Yeah. So I thought it looked fine. Yeah.
Yes, I had a look at that, was fine as well. So are we happy with that one? Go with that one. Thank you. Right. Number 9. I did have a look at this. I found it quite difficult to follow the plan of the plans on this one. Anyway, did you have a chance, Rachel?
Yeah, I know these properties reasonably well because I know some of the neighbours. Not that I've discussed the plan at all, but it's a bit funny looking at the plans because it's difficult to work out how they work. But there's sort of the drive goes over, and then there's like a deep well. That's like the lower ground floor, so they like go in their house at the middle level, and then there's this well, so they're basically filling in the well. So if you stand on the street, there'll then be, rather than just a big sort of drop behind a wall, that will be filled in with some sort of opaque glass, I think, so that you can't peer into their kitchen. But it basically makes use of what's otherwise a yard.
Dead space.
Yeah, it's a dead space basically, and you won't be able to see it from the front. Other than sort of if you look down over the wall, but also the deck terrace. That's what they've all got, deck terraces, or they're busy building them along that route. It's quite nice. You look back over a field and a stream.
So we happy to support that.
Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I thought it was happy to support it. Thank you. Right. Okay. Number 10, which is a Home for Central. Sorry, Rachel, it's you again.
Yeah, this is, I mean, there is space there. It's a garden at the moment. So to be honest, it seems okay as infill, provided the materials are in keeping. Yep.
Yes, that's what I thought. I mean, highways are happy with it. Yeah, so I think support in principle, but maybe raise an issue because I don't think there's any information about the materials to be used. So perhaps just raise the issue of the materials being suitable, acceptable. Right, and then a Hepworth one. Councillor Dixon, Tom.
Yeah, I've had a look at this one. It's the same applicants who tried to build a bunk barn there a few meetings back, but that was refused. But so this is a completely separate application for an agricultural building to house, feed lamb, and finish sheep. And I think we don't really refuse buildings for agricultural purposes because it's good for the farmers and they need it for that purpose. So I'm happy with it.
Yeah. Yes, I thought. I mean, it's quite away from the buildings on Barnside. So yeah. Sorry, Rachel.
Yeah, I was just going to raise one concern. Well, there was something raised about coal.
Coal.
Which obviously we'll put these a look into. But but also when it talks about use of the other buildings, I know it said the older buildings couldn't be utilised, but I suppose I'd like to at least look into that a bit more, because it feels as if potentially they're effectively getting rid of the old barn, although not getting rid of it, getting rid of the use of the old barn, then putting in a new agricultural building that is the barn, and so that they can then do something residential with said old barn, which, I don't know, always seems rather a shame that it can't be used the barn can't be used for its original purpose. I don't know. I mean, we may not. I'm not saying we can object to it necessarily on that basis, but I wasn't very convinced by the argument that the existing barn couldn't be used for what they were wishing to use it for.
So are we going to say support? Say support, but I thought the coal mining report was outstanding, but I might be wrong about that. Can we just go with support? Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. All right.
But,
Thanks.
yeah, I get what Rachel means. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think.
Well, yeah, it seems.
Yeah, I think the Kirklees officers will probably take in mind what Rachel has seen and probably think, do you really need this when you've got the other buildings there? And well, it could be that they use the other buildings and try and convert them into the bunk barns later on. I don't know.
Yeah.
But if they do that, I wouldn't really be particular against it either, because farmers need to diversify to keep going now. So I wouldn't be against it either. But if this helps the farm keep going, then I'm not against it.
There does seem to be a lot of development around there, when a few years ago there wasn't much, but every time you look at the plan there seems to be another building. Anyway, so we're supporting it. We're supporting that.
So is that all we're saying? Just support. We're not mentioning anything about querying the use of the old barn. We're just saying support. Is that correct?
I don't think we can query the use of the old barn, can we? We're just looking at this as a building on its own. I think we just support it. Yeah. Right. Yes, go on. Yeah, Paul.
In fairness, I haven't done any work for those people up at Barnside Farm, but I have worked for their family, so I think I better just declare.
All right. Declare an interest. Right. Thank you. Right. Moving on to number 12. This is a discharge of conditions, and with our new regime, we made a decision that when it's a discharge of conditions, we make no observation but defer to the decision of Kirklees officers. So happy to do that. Yeah, thanks. Okay, right. The next one, number 13, the land adjacent to 9 Scar Lane, so what residential development. Councillor Pogson had a look at this and he has no objection to it. Yeah.
I'm just going to say I've got Michael Pogson's email in front of me here. So if anything come up with your Michael, I can just read out his comment for you if that helps. But,
yeah, that's great.
He said no objection, so yeah.
Yeah. Councillor Hogley?
Yeah, to be honest, I didn't think there was sufficient information provided about the highways entrance or where the house was going to be on the plot, size of it, etc. I didn't think there was enough information, so I was minded to leave it to the officers rather than bought it.
I would be happier with that, because I thought the same. I thought there was insufficient. It doesn't even say the number of bedrooms. It just says, I don't know, question mark or whatever they say, are not known. And I think
there was a neighbours representation, I think, as well, wasn't there? So I think we should reflect that by saying
and the highways have said there's insufficient information. So I think perhaps we
I think a lot is made of this, how many bedrooms and God knows what. Outline applications used to be a red line round a piece of land, and then whoever bought it then decided on what they wanted to put on it. And when it went for detailed planning, that's when you put your problems in and ask the questions. For outline, it's just an outline which was line round a plan and to state whether you felt it was able to be developed or not. And in this case, if that is the reason there, and Michael says it's okay, we should be supporting the application and not supporting Kirklees Council officers who are making people work twice as hard and spend twice as much money to get an application passed. And once they've got it passed, it then goes to the builder, and the builder makes a decision as to what he wants on there. And that's when they object to it and start causing problems. I
mean, you make a very fair point there, Paul. I mean, this is an outline application. Would we? And Michael's raised no objection. Councillor Hogley.
I'd still say there's, given, I get that it's outlined, and I agree with Councillor Dixon that we can't become preoccupied with the size of the house or where it is on the plot, but I'm concerned about the highways on that particular, the layout of that bend, to be honest, going up that hill, and I would support the neighbours' comments that highways need to be happy that actually there's safe egress on that corner, and I don't think there's sufficient information, and highways say there isn't insufficient information, and I think we should support highways in getting that information to know that it's a safe place to drive.
If that is the question of highways, that if there is insufficient information as regards the access, well then, if the access isn't right, it can't have outline planning. So Rachel's right, and let's get it sent back. Not enough information on highways. We would normally refuse it by that.
Right. So we're saying that we're deferring to Kirklees Council officers on this one. We don't feel we've got enough information to make a decision.
I don't think we defer. I don't think we can defer. It's either yes or no.
No, we can say we're not going to make an observation. We don't have to make an observation. We can support, object, or not, or decide not to make an observation, as we did on the previous one.
Well, then we support the application subject to the highway officers being satisfied. If they can satisfy the highway officers that there's adequate egress and access, well then, if they can satisfy them, then we go with what Michael said about it being approved.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, let's go with that. So support, is he nodding, right? Support subject to satisfactory information being provided to
the highways officers.
Issues raised by highways.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Right now we move on to the Old Age UK shop, I think. Wanting to change.
Which shop is Mary?
It's the Old Age UK shop on Huddersfield Road. They want to make yet another cafe. Rachel.
Not just a cafe, Mary. I think it's going to be a bottle bar. That's what
yes, that was it. I was excited.
Another wine bar. We need lots of those. I think it's fine, but the only thing that was of concern was how waste was going to be managed, but that will presumably follow through environmental health and all that sort of thing. But trade waste bins are a concern in the conservation area.
Yes.
Is there any parking?
No, not really. It's right on Huddersfield Road.
I know.
Quite close to the junction as well.
Should it have if it is for a drinking establishment? Should it not have parking?
Well, there's lots of parking in Holmfirth. The bus station, Brown Bottom, Market Hall.
Yeah,
where every other bar.
Individual parking for individual properties. I don't know.
Paul, let's let Tom speak.
Yeah, I was just going to say what Rachel said. There's car parks in Holmfirth for people to park at, and if you go into a bar to have a drink, you shouldn't be driving anyway. You should be like maybe getting the bus or maybe getting a taxi there.
Yep.
I do appreciate that, but some of us can't walk very far from the vehicle that we're taking in to get to these places, and we need somewhere to park close.
Well, there'll be disabled parking on Victoria Street. You might probably manage it from there, I should think. Right.
I don't want to be walking away from Victoria Street.
Not that far.
Dad, I don't think this is your kind of bar where you'd go to be honest. So yeah, I wouldn't worry about it.
Oh dear.
That was a little bit derogatory, son. I don't know. I think people don't appreciate your relationship with me.
I think we do. Right. Let's move on. Let's move on. So we support. I get the sense of the meeting is that support this. Yeah. Thanks. Okay. Right. The next one is another Home First Central, which is replacement of roof tiles.
Leave it to the listed buildings officer.
Give it to listed. Yeah. So this is listed building consent. So no observation. Defer to listed buildings officer. Thank you. Right. All right. The next one is another thong one. It's quite a large. There's a lot of work. It's quite a large alteration. This one. Neighbours are very concerned about disruption during the building, but I guess that's not. So it's opening up the attic and to give 2 more bedrooms. Rachel.
I think the principle of an extension I was okay with, but I wasn't convinced by all the materials, to be honest, because there seemed to be lots of materials that just didn't look right. Whether it's how they've done the sketch, or I don't know, but it just I didn't think it was in keeping for the area that it's in.
Okay, are we? I mean, I thought the extension is probably fine, but so we're going to support it, but raise a query about the use of appropriate buildings, private building materials.
Question materials.
Yeah.
And should we add that we should address consideration should be made of deliveries of building materials or something, or access during construction or something, to reflect the
draw attention to the there were very vociferous neighbours' comments about the disruption. It did look a very difficult site, looking at the map. Another one, number 17. 48 Station Road.
Right, sorry, this is me again, isn't it? Right, so new windows at the front, extension at the back. There were no. The glazing bars on the windows. This is something that the conservation officer, I think, mentioned. Yeah, they look really odd. So I think we should support the conservation officer in saying that there shouldn't be glazing bars. Again, I think the principle's okay, but neighbours have raised concern about the impacts on the light at the back. So I just think we should reflect that. So I think I support the principle, but need to address neighbours' concerns around lighting and support conservation officer about the glazing bars.
Yes, yeah, they do. It does look odd. Yes, and there was some. Seemed to be some confusion about the drawing of the extension at the back, which appeared to have a door coming straight into the neighbour's back. But maybe that was just a mistake. So are we agreeing to this? But so agree to the application, but draw attention to the need for simple sash windows as recommended by the Kirklees Heritage. Okay, right. The next one's a variation of condition. This is a long-standing a saga, really, isn't it? This building. I think we've had applications for this before. This is the this eco home that's taking a long time to build and keeps having bits stuck on it.
We leave it to the Kirklees officer because it's a variation of.
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
It was always said that site should never be developed, but then this gentleman came about having his eco house, and every time he changes his shirt, he decides he wants to do a different design. And I think we should have had enough of this and tell him to either stop it or get it done to what was previously approved.
The neighbours are certainly, yeah, feel as though it's a saga. So let's just step away and defer this to decision of Kirklees officers. Right, Evington, Cartworth Road, number 19, certificate of lawfulness.
This seemed
okay. Yeah, okay. Are we happy with that? I thought that was fine as a minor thing. Thank you.
I did the same 40 years ago. But Velux windows and made enough.
Right. The next one's one of ours, Paul, 72 Paris Road, Scholes. So this was a list. This is a listed building consent. I mean, we would defer to Kirklees office. I mean, I can't see any problem with this.
Listed building consent for installation of double glazed timber framed windows. It's what it wants, double framed timber framed windows. I think what this is, I don't know why they need an application to get it passed. It is correct. And as long as the windows are in keeping with the list of building officers' requirements, I shouldn't see a problem.
No, so I think we say in our new scheme, it's no observation, defer to Kirklees officers. It looks fine. Yeah. I know where it is. Yeah. Moving on, another. Oh, Pat, this is one of yours, isn't it? Another listed building. Pat, you're on mute. Sorry.
It's a straightforward support. They want to replace rotten windows with nice wooden ones.
You know, you can have rotten windows in Otley. We don't need nice windows.
Yeah. So this
is, however, in the conservation area.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is a listed building consent again, isn't it? So we say defer to Kirklees officers, but yeah, looks fine to me. Right. The next one is messy building. It's in Upper Home Valley. So Rachel, did you have a chance to ponder on this one?
I thought it looked broadly okay, to be honest. I didn't have any particular comments on it.
No, I thought it was all right. I mean, the existing building's no great shakes, and it's just adding little bits more to it. It's not destroying anything that's valuable, I thought. So we just support that. Right, the next one is one of 23, a Brockholes one. Michael sent in a message to say no objection to this one. That right, Tom? Yeah. Yeah, and it's in pretty inoffensive single-story extension. So I had a look fine to me. So support. Okay, thank you. Oh, are we getting there? Number 24. Another Home First Central.
Not me again.
Yeah.
24. Oh, this is quite an intriguing one because it looks like a large garden area. It's obviously got football goals in, and from the various photos that they showed from years gone past, it's obviously been sort of used in that way for a long time. And I suppose, I mean, obviously once it's a domestic garden, then there's the opportunity to potentially develop on it, which one would imagine is perhaps what they're angling for, which I suppose isn't inherently a problem, but I'm just conscious that that's probably why they're formally trying to designate it as a domestic garden. So I suppose I don't really have any comment on it. Really, I don't feel minded to either support it or I just feel like I've got no comment, because if they've got evidence it's been held for that long as a unofficial garden, then I suppose it's fine.
And it's it's very close to me.
The question I ask is, by giving this a certificate of lawfulness, does it make it development land? Does it turn it from being a green field, which it used to be, into a development site? The same applies to the next application, which I don't know whether it's a duplicate of the first one.
I think it's a duplicate.
But back at Green Mount years ago, there used to be a small paddock where a gentleman used to keep his sheep. I don't know what's happened with it over the last 10 years, because I don't think they've had any sheep there for about 10 or 15 years. But it was always a small area where they used to keep some hens and pigeons and things of that nature, and there were always a few sheep in that field. I'm just wondering whether somebody's trying to make it bigger, the curtilage of the domestic garden, in order to develop on it.
That's what I'm a bit suspicious of, but I think it is worth noting it's not green belt, but it is adjacent to an urban green space, having looked at the local plan, which in itself doesn't matter. But I guess because it's not in the green belt, it would be likely to be suitable as infill development once it should someone wish to do.
But would it be a problem if it ever did get developed? I don't know.
I'd be minded to leave it to the officers, to be honest. I don't have any strong view.
Yeah, defer to Kirklees officers.
The same to the next one.
I think it's a duplicate, isn't it?
Being cheeky, I think.
What was that, Rich?
So I think he's being cheeky.
Right. Okay, so we move on to 26, which is.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yeah, I think that number 25 is a repetition of the previous one.
Yeah,
okay, right. Number 26.
Me again.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah, this one is still staying as a one bed property. They're extending at the side and the back, and it seemed okay to me.
Okay.
Support, right? We'll go with support for that one. The next one, the 2027. That's you, Pat, isn't it?
It's 28 is the same property. 28 is listed building consent. I think we should approve it. I mean, it's a property that, although it's listed, it has had extensions put on it and things. And this is a completely unremarkable building next to it that they want to make a wee bit bigger. It seems to me something. If we have the authority to support it, we should.
So we support.
Seems okay.
Yeah. And the next one is the listed building consent, isn't it? Number 28.
Yeah, 28 is the same property. I don't think we do have support for that, do we? I mean, we don't have authority for that, do we?
Well, we've decided ourselves to defer to Kirklees officers on listed building consents. Yeah. Okay. Number 29.
Yeah, me again. This is a shed, which, to be honest, given what's each side of the location of the shed, which is two fairly unexciting and unremarkable carports of varying colours and backgrounds, I think we should support it.
Yep. Okay. Live support. Yep.
I don't understand why everybody has to put planning in for a garden shed. I never did.
Because it's conservation area.
Yeah.
Ah.
Be quiet. Right.
I'm a conservationist.
Right. The number 30. These are quite popular. Extending your garage to farm a gym or a.
There's little else being applied for.
Or a home office. You know.
Yes.
This is the kind of life we're leading now, yes. Rachel, I had mixed views about this one.
I'd look at this. To be honest, I thought it was okay because of where the garage is, because it's right at the back of the plot, so you can't. And the way the hillside sort of goes up on that side of the road, I didn't think it would cause any harm to anybody, and doesn't seem to be overlooking anyone. When I saw the plans, I thought, oh heavens, there's going to be someone, you know, doing all their stretching out on the balcony, overlooking everyone else, all their neighbours. And then I looked at exactly where it was, and it looked all right to me.
Okay, let's support that. Number
we won't need COVID to kill people in a bit. They'll kill themselves with all these bloody gymnasiums and things.
Yeah, we'll get them better from COVID, only for them to die of muscle strain and heart attacks.
Oh, just realised we've lost our member of the public.
Oh, we have.
I thought he'd stay for the public inquiry.
He'll have had enough by now. He'd only be interested in the footpath, wouldn't he?
I know, he might come back, I guess. All right. So,
he wasn't the footpath person, though. I don't know who he was. Was he?
He was.
Yes.
He was the architect for the footpath.
The planning inspector. Right. Okay. 31 we've dealt with. 32. Fullstone. Tom, did you have a chance to look at this one?
Yeah, I've had a look at this one. It's really far out of the way, and it's quite a small building that they're putting up. I'm fine with it.
Okay, fine. Support that one. Yep, I thought so.
I think that the member of the public who was on till now did say, when you asked him, he was listening for various applications. So he may be an agent for other applications rather than Wolfson.
Yes.
The footpath person said he'd come back at about 8:15, I think.
Okay.
No, it was the 4x4 person.
The 4x, right. Yeah. Okay, number 33.
Support. Completely unremarkable.
Yeah, I think Michael had something to say about this one, didn't he? Is that right?
Oh, did he?
No, he didn't. No, he didn't. No. Support. Okay, support for number 33. Number 34, change from stone to render.
Michael has got no objections on that one.
Yep.
I thought as a variation, we often leave those to Kurt Lees and we support those.
Yes, yeah. Well, I think remember we need to discuss variation or discharge, but because we have made comments and variations, I think, but it's only at the back, as Michael's comment is, it's only at the back and it's only really visible to the occupiers. So I don't see a problem with this one. Should we?
The cost must have been too high. They decided to do it cheaper.
Yes. Yeah, they go for support. Thanks. Cambria, number 35, Cambria, Holt Lane balcony.
Yeah, I thought this was okay, provided the materials were in keeping and there was no overlooking of the neighbours.
Yep. Yes, I'd agree with that. Yeah, I kind of picked it up on the overlooking. So it's going to say support subject to overlooking and suitable materials
in keeping.
Right, number 36. This is about the estate roads, and Michael sent quite a long. His statement is, I have concerns that the variation of this condition will result in the estate roads not being constructed to a sufficient standard. Further to this, I am concerned that the estate roads will not be maintained to a sufficient standard once the site is occupied and the developer has left the site. I therefore object to this application. I couldn't quite work this out really. Tom?
is that a reason to refuse it for planning? We could say for highways matters, but I don't know.
Councillor Hogley's got a hand up, Councillor.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry, just checking I wasn't on mute. Yeah, I think, to be honest, we can stick to, I think we should support the original conditions. So, because I think it should be adopted by Kirklees and adhere to their standards. But I think we can just say, no, there shouldn't be a variation to the original conditions.
So we object to the variation and say that it should, yeah, adhere to the conditions imposed at the time of the application. Yeah, thanks. And next one, 37, there's a very long statement from Michael, which you may have seen. He in the end he has no objection.
I don't think we should. I think that we should do the same as with the last one, because I don't think we want to be the ones to vary the conditions. We were happy with the conditions last time, so let's let them be.
Councillor Hogley? Yeah, I'd agree with what Councillor Dixon just said. I think we should say that the conditions were put in for a reason.
For a reason. Yeah.
I think one of the concerns was the mix of houses, or rather lack of mix of houses. I mean, it's quite interesting actually, because those two applications, it was quite trying to work out how they fit together.
So same statement as last time that we yeah. Okay, thanks. Fine, we're nearly there. The last three. Oh, hello, Andy. The last three are three Northern Power Grid applications.
We got number 38 as well.
Nearing the line. List. Oh, sorry. Yes. Right. The this is a listed building consent for the replacement of a front door within a conservation area. Yeah. I know this one.
The building officer.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Sorry, are you want to speak, Rachel? Are you?
Yeah. I was just going to say. Well, I support the listed buildings officer, but I hope that they want the doors all to look similar, because I just think it isn't in keeping. There's a row of, there's a style.
No, it looks.
I think it looks wrong.
Yeah, it's a walk I do often, and it looks quite. It's very obviously not a wooden door, despite what they say. Yeah. So
I don't know whether, given that strength of feeling, I think maybe we should say that actually we would like it to be a door that's in keeping with the row of properties.
So we defer to the list building officer, but no, we're not deferring, are we? We are therefore saying object, I guess.
Yeah. As doors should be of a similar style.
Yeah. The doors, it's certainly not. Yeah, it's not appropriate. Okay. Right. Now we get to Northern Power Grid. We have three of them, these are improving the electricity supply, one would hope.
What are they planning to do, Mary?
Well, two of them. The first one, they're 39 and 41. They're replacing a length of line with a higher capacity cable. That's how it looks to me. And it's on the same line. I think it's on the same line. So I mean, there's no detail really. I think it's very quite technical, and we probably need to defer. Rachel.
Just ask, Mary,
Yeah.
I don't know if Councillor Dixon's got any comments on this. I've never seen applications for this, and I can't believe this is the first time in 6 years of being on the council that they've come to us. Or sorry,
never heard it before.
No.
Right. Okay, Tom.
So I don't know why we're getting them.
Sorry.
Exactly what Rachel and my dad just said. I've never seen them before. I don't know if there's been a change in the rules recently. Why you have to get permission now? Because the number 40, which is on next, like it's fine. You need it really, and it's in the middle of nowhere. It doesn't matter anyway. So yeah. I don't think I haven't looked at the other two, but the one in my ward was fine.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on, Mary. I seem to spend all my life now going round farms assessing damage done by these people when they do damage to farmers' land, and it's very lucrative. It seems to me that somebody has told the electric companies to bring their act together, and that's why these things are cropping up. So whether there's a reason for these, I'd like to know. Because obviously, if it's going to be something for the future, it wasn't in the past. And when they've gone along and they did a big line which went from Hepworth right away through Jackson Bridge to New Mill, and there was never any question of anything in there. They just took the poles down, replaced the cables, and that was the job lot. And the same is happening all over the well, mainly in South Yorkshire, we've done a lot. I don't know why they need planning consent now, and that's the mystery of this. We can't object to these in the sense that they will have statutory powers to be able to do it.
Shall we for all three of them? Shall we just defer to the decision of Kirklees officers? I mean, the documentation is completely different. I wonder, would it be worth?
We need guidance. We need guidance.
Asking Rich to see if there's any, you know, asking why we've suddenly started to get these and what they're expecting from us. Really, is that, are people happy? Yeah, right. So yeah. For these last three, we say we defer to the Kirklees officers. No observation.
And recommend all these landowners speak to my assistant and get themselves a bit of compensation.
Right, let's move on swiftly in that case. Well done. That's, yeah. What was that, for those who've been on the council longer than me, was that an unprecedented number of applications? Not really, some saying, I think. Standard,
Mary. We used to get a lot more in the past.
I think the overhead lines took us over the line.
Oh, took us over the line, yes.
Well, certainly got us through them with enormous efficiency.
Well, we got through them. I don't know about efficiency. Right, let's move back to our agenda. Item 9, which is Kirklees Council Planning Office decision. There was only one difference of opinion between us, which was put in, I think it was a garage, was it a garage or an office maybe, on top of a garage or something. Anyway, yeah, it was thought to be visually dominant and incongruous. I love the word, detrimental to the character and appearance of the area. So we got, well, you could say we got that one wrong, but maybe we didn't. We just don't know. Right, let's move on to number 10, which is neighbourhood planning. Is there any update?
Yes, this is me. Yes, there is an update.
Yes.
Yeah, well, as I think I reported at the last meeting, I think we were waiting for the examiner to come back to us with comments. So since that time, the examiner has come back with their initial list of questions for both ourselves and Kirklees and the Peak District. So many of those were just factual clarifications, which we've gone back to them with. And basically how it works is Kirklees coordinate the reply to the examiner and the sort of deadlines given. And then at the moment we're working on reviewing, there's 3 specific policies that we're working on at the minute. One is about the protection of the landscape, basically. The other is about the protection of our heritage assets. And the third thing is about specific heritage assets or non-designated heritage assets and important buildings that have been identified in conservation areas. So we've had, I've now had 2 meetings with Kurt Lees. I've got another on Friday, and we're basically trying to come to an agreed set of words which captures a lot of information that was already somewhere in the neighbourhood plan, but a lot of it was in our appendix, which is where we got ACOM, which was a separately contracted organisation, did a heritage and character landscape assessment of the valley, and they identified buildings that are important, but also the kind of elements of each part of the home valley which were special, effectively, from an objective point of view, as opposed to just what local people felt. And so we're trying to draw out the key bits in the appendix to then put them in the meat of the plan, which then gives them more clarity, I guess, because the examiner was saying, look, as an applicant and indeed as an officer then interpreting the plan, you need to make sure all the information is kind of front and centre, so people know what to refer to and there's no contradictions between what's in the appendix and what's in the main body of the plan. So to cut a long story short, our planning consultant is working with myself and the steering group to sort of reflect Kurt Lees's feedback, the examiner's feedback, and get to an agreed set of words which we would then send back to the examiner for comment. And then the examiner will make his decision on the basis of all that information, come back with any other questions, and then basically come back and say, right, these are the changes I want you to make to the plan. So it's a bit of toing and froing, but there's nothing at the moment, there's no sort of, right, you need to take out those policies or that shouldn't happen, or it's all kind of constructive. How can we get wording which is usable by Kurt Lees, but also doesn't lose the spirit and the drive of what our community is trying to achieve through the neighbourhood plan.
So was that a favourable outcome, Rachel, would you say?
I think so, yeah. I mean, I think the very positive thing is Kurt Lees, rather than over recent, well, years, to be honest, they've been slightly reluctant to work closely with us on getting wording which is kind of mutually agreed, and their tendency has been to say, well, we don't support what you've said and we disagree because X, Y and Z, rather than saying, well, actually, what are you trying to achieve? How can we work together to get some wording that works better? And we're now, I think, in that space of Kurt Lees' officers saying, well, we have to apply your policy once it's adopted. So let's try and, you know, we need to understand where you're coming from. What is it you're trying to achieve with this wording? How could we help you achieve that whilst also adhering to what we need to do? So there may still be areas of disagreement, and I think there probably will be, but they'll be for the examiner to decide on. But I think at the minute there's a really positive kind of working relationship, which I think is helpful, because in the end, if the neighbourhood plan is voted for by our community and adopted, it's the Kurt Lees planning officers who will be using it to basically apply the principles that the community wants to see in our area. So it's important that we kind of work constructively. So I think it's positive, but I'd say there's a lot of work going on to update those 2 key policies.
Good. Thank you. Anybody? Any questions for Rachel? No? Thank you. Thanks, Rachel. Right, moving on, item 11, Peak District National Park Authority. So we will note the update of the list. There was only one item on it, was the heat pump, you might remember. So we'll note that. B was to note the decision notices, and again there was only one thing. It was the heat pump, which we as a committee supported and was granted by the Peak District National Park, so that's good. And then C, to note the residential annexes supplementary planning document, which was issued in February. So we'll note that. I did have a look at it. It's really quite a complex document. I think it's for professionals rather than residents.
Are you not professional, Madam Chairman?
What? We're not in planning. No.
All the opposition. It was
right. Strategic item 12. Strategic priorities for for planning, I don't think there's much. This is the small group of Rachel, Pat and I don't think there's much update on here, except in terms possibly of the moving towards a local design guide, and the fact that I don't know how many people filled in the questionnaire, but the questionnaire that was circulated amongst council members to identify buildings that you liked or didn't like and to give the reasons. I think in the end it had quite a lot of responses. I can't remember what the last figure was. So maybe that the idea was that would be a first point, a starting point in the development of a local design guide. So I think that's probably the only progress. There's been rather a lot of things on. Right. So we now come to the Wolfstones Footpath 60, item 13, and we note that the virtual public inquiry will be on the 24th of August, and the date there will be a pre-inquiry meeting, but the date of that is still to be arranged. And then secondly, so we're noting that the second to consider arrangements regarding the presentation of the evidence to public inquiry. So, Rachel.
Yeah, I did a bit of digging into this as to how public inquiries work on the internet. And as far as I understand it, there's no, obviously the local planning authority, so Kirklees, is required to attend the public inquiry and give their view. And obviously they get legal counsel if they wish to represent them. But if there is a party such as Kirklees in this instance, since we've adopted the same approach as them in terms of objecting to the moving of the footpath, unless we have anything substantive to add to what they're going to say, the general guidance seems to say that you don't need to therefore take part in the public inquiry because you're not really adding anything to it. And but if you do want to add something specific, then you become what's called a Rule 6 party, and there's a whole load of guidance as to what a Rule 6 party is, but it seems to be, it could be a group or an individual, but again, all the emphasis seems to be to encourage you to see if other people are representing your point of view, and in which case there's no point in you making the same points again. So what I thought we should probably do is check that Kirklees are represented, and which clearly I'm assuming they will be, but make sure that Kirklees' position is still that they're going to attend the public inquiry, and clarify perhaps with the inspector if we as a statutory body in this instance are expected to attend said public inquiry, because if we don't feel we have anything to add, I don't really see the point in us taking part in it. That doesn't mean we're removing our objection, it just means we have nothing to add to the public inquiry, which from looking, as I say, I'm only going on the guidance from the government, you know, the gov.uk website on how public inquiries work. And I'm not averse to us taking part in it if it's a constructive and necessary thing for us to do. And I think we can make the case, but if we don't need to, because Kirklees is already having that sort of as the defendant, if you like, in the appellant, then I don't see that we have to do it on principle.
Yeah. Paul?
I've been involved in many inquiries over the years. I understand Rachel's concern. I know where we're at. I think what we need to do is basically nominate one person to be attending the visual thing so they can fully report back exactly what has happened. We need to do our little bit of research, and when the time is right, we submit our case, which is basically what we've laid down before, which states that the footpath has been altered and one thing and another, and the various reasons we don't want to see it change in direction and all that matter. And if we put that down, that goes to the inspector, who will take that into account when he does his decision. I don't think we need to have anybody speak to the matter, as long as we've put a sensible case forward and stated the reasons why we don't want to see the footpath buried. And if we've done that as a parish council, we are seen to do our bit for our people. And as long as somebody on our committee has got time to be able to be involved with such things as that, whether they read it all or watch it all or what, I don't know, because it could go on for a couple of hours, it could go on for a couple of days. I don't know how much time they put down for the case study, but these people are going to be fighting this, and we've got to be seen to be doing what we feel is right. I have a big belief in footpaths. They should be on roads only, but I'm not going to say anything in this case. Fields should be left for cows and sheep to graze, and that's it.
Councillor Tom Dixon or Pat Culling, anything to add? No, I would agree with both of you, really. I can't see the point in going to speak an inquiry just to repeat information that's already been given. I mean, that seems a pointless exercise. So I'd suggest we follow the course of action suggested by Rachel, which is that we check that Kirklees is certainly is going to be presenting representing itself at the inquiry, and check what the basis of their case is, and make sure that it covers everything that we would wish to have said.
It does slightly worry me that when we've got a thing of importance like this, that Kirklees are being represented by officers and not by an independent party. The aggressor, the landowner, may well be getting some high-powered assistance. I know Mr. Scanlon's been involved before, but they might be able to run rings around the officers at Kirklees because of knowledge that they may have, which is more than what we would understand.
We don't know who's going to represent them, do we? Really, I mean, it could be a barrister, I suppose. Right.
Kirklees won't be having a barrister because they'll just have their officers there. Normally, in cases like this, they would.
Right. Are we happy with Rachel's suggestion from Rachel that we've dig a bit more, find out exactly what Kirklees was going to include in their representation, and make sure that it includes everything that we would wish to say. So we happy with that?
If we wish to make a statement, we can put that together at the next meeting, not now. Right.
Oh, we're not doing it now. Pat.
I take Councillor Paul Dixon's point that as a parish council we should make a written submission and be seen to be doing something for our parishioners, and not just leaving it to Kirklees.
Yeah.
I entirely agree we shouldn't bother to go and talk, but
yes.
Sorry, can I just comment? Yes. I'm not sure if it works like that though, because I think if you make a statement of case, you've got to attend to questions on it. So I think what we would benefit from clarifying as well is possibly contacting or asking Rich to do this for us. The contact that we've been given from the National Transport Casework team in the letter. So we've basically just got a standard letter, haven't we? To say, can they confirm that the planning inspector will have received our previous, decisions and the reasons for them? Because I think in the guidance that I read, basically the inspector would have seen everything, including the fact that the parish council has objected to it. And so really we asked, that is still evidence that's considered. It's just if we've got anything more to add. And I think conscious as well of what Councillor Dixon was raising about the strength of barristers and legal opinion. You know, if we don't have anything extra to say, then to my mind we would potentially undermine the Kirklees case if we don't then take the time to get the legal representation. And
thanks. I think we also ought perhaps to review what we've said in the past and make sure we're still happy with what the statement that we've made previously. So if there's anything to add. Is that okay? Is that okay, Rich? Have you captured that? Thank you. You're happy to move on, committee? Right, I think the next one, item 14, is just to note that there's going to be a plaque on the outside of the Civic Hall. You note that? Cute.
What is it to commemorate?
Us taking it over, Councillor Dixon.
Yeah, that's smashing.
Is that okay? Happy with that?
I thought it might be something a little bit more exciting.
That is exciting, Councillor Dixon.
Right. Sorry, I'm conscious that time's marching on, but with not so much left. Right, the conservation area appraisal being prepared for Hongley, which I think is probably really good news. A firm has been commissioned to prepare the appraisal, yes, I was going to say, Hongley councillors, they would welcome any recommendation on how best to reach people in Hongley. So maybe that's something that they collectively, the Hongley Council, Labour councillors could have a look at. Right, okay. Moving on to item 16, the environmental damage by 4x4 users to Round Close Road. Right, I think we established, I think in fact it's, I can't remember if Rachel or Rich who established that in fact this is not a byway open to all traffic, although it is used by motorised vehicles, and as one of the parish councillors for covering Head Edge, I went and spoke to the residents at the farm. There's two dwellings. There's a farm and a barn, and one is occupied by the farm's occupied by the father and the barn by the daughter. I spoke to the daughter, and understandably they don't want traffic barred from the path, the road, because they're kind of a third of the way up it really. So just suggesting that perhaps we might approach the Head Edge Residents Association to see if they've got ideas about how to consult, see if they can come up with any ideas about how to address this nuisance. So people are happy with that if we, So Rich, you want to speak? Rachel?
Yeah, I was just going to comment. Yeah, I'm very happy with that. I'd just say there is potentially the opportunity, and I don't know if you were able to discuss this with the residents, that obviously there's the bit going up from the Head Edge village direction towards their farm, and then they could, I don't know if you talked to them about if there was a gate or some blockage that was beyond their drive, if you see what I mean. So they could still get into their property in and out from the direction of Head Edge, but it would be the continuation of that track, which to be fair is in much more worse pitted conditions. I'm not sure that they would use it regularly, or if they did, it wouldn't be at much speed.
Yeah, I didn't specifically raise that with. I'm perfectly happy to do that. Okay, I don't
know whether Mary, that road gets the use it used to do, but I know at one time, going back a long time ago, it used to get plenty of usage for people using it as a rat run between the top road and the bottom one. And whether it's deteriorated now, it's a while since last time I was up there. I went to the farm on a matter of business, and it seemed to me to be in a worse state than it used to be. But it's a pleasure park for these off-roaders, isn't it? That's the thing.
I walked up there last week actually, and it's quite rutted. I mean, you could still get through with a 4x4, and clearly people who want to take 4x4s completely off will go down it. But it was interesting. Someone had actually put some trees across some of the particularly pitted bits, not on the track itself, but on the land adjacent to it, making it more difficult for people to get onto that land. So people have sort of done informal things, but I do think approaching the Hayden Residents Association is a good idea, alongside potentially just returning to the residents of the farm, perhaps after asking the Hayden residents to see whether potentially closing off a section of the lane would help.
I don't know who the landowner is up there who owns that land that has been disturbed, because it's just like a piece of it's part of the common, isn't it?
I don't. We didn't establish that, did we? In the end, I don't think we.
I don't think we did, because
did we use the land registry?
The previous farm, well, where the farm is now, when it was farmed as a farm, the farmer used to take his cows and walk them up that road on a night. So he always said it was free grazing, and he used to take them up and then put his dog round them and bring them back into his own fields when he'd had a walk. And it was amusing, but it was a way of getting some cheap feed.
Councillor Hogley.
I was just going to say, I think Councillor Pogson had identified that whilst you couldn't identify who the landowners were, actually it was divided amongst quite a few different landowners. There was some land ownership map. He had an image of it, and it had about, I don't know, 6 or something, different parcels of land. So to some extent, even if we found out who it belonged to, if it's 6 different parcels, it's quite difficult to then.
It's the people at the farm believe that it's all owned by Yorkshire Water, but of course they could be wrong, wouldn't they? I don't think we haven't taken this up with any Kirklees officers, have we either? I don't think we did that last time. So should we contact Kirklees officers about this? Yes, about let's establish what its status. Perhaps can have a clear determination of what its status is. Right. And I will go back and speak to the residents again, and we'll ask for the support or help of the Hayden Residents Association. Okay, we happy with that? It's a bit of a plan. Thank you. Good. Right. Broadcar Lane in Hepworth. So the assistant clerk has contacted Rob Dolby and his team. Has there been any response?
I've just had a bounce back email saying he's not back at work until tomorrow, so there's been no response other than that.
Right. So I think Paul Dixon and then Rachel. Thank you.
After our last meeting, I spoke to the lady who sent the letter, and with a long conversation over the telephone, and she stated that Rob Dolby had been to see her the Friday before our meeting, and they'd come to some form of a conclusion, but I don't know exactly what it was. But it wasn't as strong as I'd hoped, that we could have some bollards put at the top. But the word is that it seems that this gentleman, Mr. Dolby, is well known to the people that are doing the off-roading. I don't know whether that's a true fact or not, but it's possible that the Kirklees do know who they are, but don't seem to want to do anything much about it. The lady in question stated that she was a lot happier after having had a meeting with him than what she was before. But over the last 3 weeks or more, 3-4 weeks, they still seem to be going up and down the road, these people, as they come past our house, and we hear them as they go past. And as Tom's mum usually says, oh, they're up road again. And that's the problem we've got.
I think we've just got to keep putting on pressure, don't we, and pushing and asking for responses from quickly. Rachel.
Yeah, can I just ask while the Deputy Clerk's reminding Rob Dalby about that site, could we just ask what the position is with the public spaces protection order on the Ramsden Road? Only because, again, I went down there last week and there's no sign of any gates yet. And I'm conscious it's it's at least 5 weeks, isn't it, since we talked about it before, if not more. So it'd be useful to have an update of whether that's been successful, that order, in terms of actually being, I don't know, legally brought into force or whatever the process is, because it would be nice to see some progress on the ground. Because what they were telling us was very positive, but obviously if they're finding it then takes 6 months to get the order in place, then it'd be useful for us to know that in advance of people starting to ask questions.
Any more comments on Broad Car Lane? No, thank you everybody. Right, final item, which is just to note that the Deputy Clerk contacted Mirfield Town Council with our very brief response to their information about their resolution. So that's it. So thank you.
Mary, could I
yes.
just make one comment before we do close? Thank you very much for keeping it down to a minimum the time. But I was just coming through home for today. I noticed a light on and the barber was open at the bottom of Upper Thong Lane. Has Richard heard any more whether they're going to take those signs down or not? Or is it that we're just going to be told, well, these people are nice and that they're allowed to do what they want? Has Richard heard any more?
I've heard no more. They've obviously not been there because obviously we've all been in lockdown, so there's not anybody in the shop. So perhaps I just need to chase Kirklees officers again and get an update again. And I think perhaps we just need to keep doing it until we get something to happen.
So sorry for that, but it just called me when I saw they were still there this afternoon when we came past.
No, I noticed exactly the same as you when I went past.
Thanks for raising that, Paul. Right, I think that's the end of this somewhat marathon meeting. Thanks everybody for sticking with it. And all your contributions. And we'll have fewer planning applications in the next one, I'm sure. So thank you, and and good night.
Thank you.